Hey homies, welcome back. Today for Out of the Vault, we're going to use some Simon Hurley stamps from last year, Ranger White embossing powder. I'm going to pull out the good old liquid pearls, and we're going to watercolor a little bit. Let's get started. Alrighty, so I have a piece of watercolor paper. I'm going to treat it with my anti-static powder. And we're going to emboss this background stamp. It's called Luau with white embossing powder. So let's ink this up. And if this doesn't turn out to be a perfect background, I'm all right with that. Because I'm going to be covering up so much of it, I don't think it's going to really matter a whole lot. Now I'm going to take this to the stamp. I'm going to use my stamp presser tool over this stamp. Flip it over. Yep, we got it. All right. This B brand paper is really heavily textured. So, you know, the Tim Holtz watercolor paper is a good option. Some other brands are maybe a little smoother, but I really like this paper and I use it for a lot of things. I do use the Tim Holtz paper a lot too, but I had a piece of this sitting out within easy reach, and so that's what I used instead. I'm going to heat this up and we'll be back. Alrighty, we're all embossed. That actually turned out really nicely. I'm going to pull my watercolors over. So what I've got here are Daniel Smith colors. This is just an older palette of iridescent colors from like Michael's. And I'm going to give them another spritz. I did spray them a little while ago to get them going. Looks like there's a dead mosquito in there. I'm just going to drop some paint in here. Spray my paper a little. Let's do some hot pink, because you know that's my favorite. I do have a little green in here, so I'll try and get some of these leaves. Get some iridescent in there. It looks like I missed a flower down here. A couple. Some more iridescent here. I'm going to blot just a little. So I've got a whole lot of water on here. Go back in. Move this up a little. And I'm going to do this iridescent orange. This is kind of bright. On this flower here in the middle. And this one here. And I don't know how much of this is going to get covered up. Put a little bit in there. And get a little more green. Now let's take the green that's on my brush and add it in here. Kind of random. Go ahead and blot. Then I'm going to go over the entire background with this kind of greenish goldish color here. Okay, we're going to set this aside to dry, and when it's dry, I'm going to go into those stamens with either a gold gel pen or maybe some stickles. I haven't decided yet. We'll set this aside to dry and work on the rest of our stamping. All right, now we've got the lovely Mythical Mermaid, and I think I want to do the unicorn. Nope, I'm going to do the girl. I'm going to do the girl, and we're going to say, let's catch up on the outside. Call me on my shell phone on the inside, and I'll have her holding a shell. All right, I've got another... words are hard. I've got another scrap of watercolor paper. We're going to stamp her, and I'm going to cut her out. So we're going to pick her up, and we're going to follow our friend Simon Hurley's lead and emboss this with clear powder. So let's ink her up. Might have to stamp her twice. Yeah, that's okay. I thought I would. This is heavily, heavily textured paper. That's good. Pour some clear powder over her. All right, I'll go heat up our little mermaid and I'll be back. There we go, she looks good. Alrighty, I want to stamp and emboss this little shell so that she's holding it. There we go, a little embossing powder. All right, let's have a smaller brush and give our mermaid a little paint here. Now this color right here is a pretty decent skin tone, so we're going to use this, and she's going to be very shimmery. Paint her little tummy. All right, now for her hair, give her some really pretty brunette hair. Maybe we'll put some colored streaks in it. And then for her little bottom scaly part here, I'm gonna mix a little, some of this shimmery aqua green. It's an aqua, definitely on the green side though. A little bit of my blue that's here. A little bit of the shimmer blue. And for her little top, let's mix some of the shimmer pink in with this opera pink that I have left here. I'll put some of this pink in her hair. And then let's do a little shimmery purple in her hair too. Pink and purple hair. She's a mermaid, she should have fun hair, right? I want to add a little shadow there at her waist. So I'm going to add some of this darker blue in. There's some of the blue we used before, but just darken it up. Just go right across there and kind of feather it down. And then just pull it down with a little water. I think the lip, I'm going to go in with a marker because that's a really small area. I don't want to mess it up. All right, she's done. We're going to let her dry. Let her little seashell. Use this iridescent gold. And then add a little bit of the brown in there. A little shading. All right, these are pretty small, so they'll dry quickly. I'll be back when they're dry. All right, I want to get this background cut down to go onto the card front. That's probably too small. So I'm using the Waffle Flower A2 layering dies as usual. 3. No, let's do number 2. And then the nice thing about doing it this way is you can then position, you know, so your image is cropped just how you want. If you didn't stamp particularly straight, you can kind of try and straighten it up, which I like as well, because, you know, anything straight is hard for me. All right, let's go get this cut. Oh yeah, see, now I've got this lovely background, which is cropped ever so nicely. Okay, now I want to have my little girl kind of coming out of a frame. And I thought maybe I would use these nestabilities here and see how big I can go, which is probably have to be that one. Because this piece of pink paper isn't very big. But I think that'll be okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this out. And then after it's cut out, figure out what solid circle to put in there. So so it makes a frame. And then I'm also going to cut it out of the vellum to diffuse that background behind her. Here's our pretty little scallop circle. I need a circle to fit in there to cut a, so it ends up being like a frame. And that might be perfect. I'm gonna tape it down so it doesn't shift. I'm gonna cut the scallop circle once again from the vellum and just layer it behind. I think it'll make it easier to stick it all together. All right, I'll be back. Well, that couldn't have worked out any better. And I'm just going to adhere this to the back of this to diffuse that background just a little. And actually, I might offset it. Look at that. I think I will. Of course, bear glue to the rescue. And we're going to offset. Oh, shoot. I don't want to glue that down yet, though, do I? Well, I'm going to place this to the side here. So let's go ahead. I'm doing this in the wrong order. Let's go ahead and glue this down, because I want her to pop up out of that frame. So if I glue it together, that's not going to work. Obviously, I'm not a professional. Okay, put that there, because I'm going to need to pop that up. That was very smart of me. Okie dokie artichoke. I think she's dry enough to cut out. Get the ever faithful cutter bees and get her cut out. Oh, look at her. Now I gotta figure out how I want her to position in here. Now I kind of want this offset, so I need to make sure. Of course, I guess if it doesn't end up offset, it doesn't matter. You really can't see it, but I'd like it to. All right, let's get her head out. All right, I'm gonna glue her head so she stays put. Then I'm gonna glue her little tail part there. So it's kind of like she's floating in this frame. Put a little glue. Okay, let's hold that down for a second. So what do I always say about watercolor paper? You need wet glue. Okay, we're gonna glue this on the card, but we're gonna pop it up. Got some white fun foam here. And even though it has adhesive, I'm gonna add some bare glue because this is going onto the watercolor paper. And I wanna be doubly sure that it's staying stuck. Look it. Now that's cute. And then we're gonna pop it right on that card front. Oh, this is gonna be cute. All right, let's weight this down for a minute. Okay, I still need to cut out my little seashell, which was simple. We just added a little shading. Used the same watercolor that I used for her skin, and then the same brown that I used for her hair for the shading. Now, since this guy is pretty little and you're gonna see the edges, I am going to go over it with a black marker. I didn't on the mermaid because so much of her is hidden, but I like to do that when I cut black images out of watercolor paper, because the paper is so thick that no matter how good of a cutter you are, you're gonna see the edges of it. So I'm just gonna take this marker, go right around the edge. And it's a small thing, but man, it makes such a big difference. There we go. I'm gonna have to weight this card down when it's done, but that's okay. So put the shell in her hand. Just use a little dot of glue. Okay, I'm gonna put "Let's Catch Up" on the front, and then "Call Me on My Shell Phone" inside. Let's stamp it on this scrap here. There we go. Lovely. Trim this down into a strip. I think I would like to mat that on this pink. Yeah, I think I'm gonna like that a little better. We'll just place this on the card front at an angle. Let's do an angle. Usually I do my words straight, but let's do an angle today. All right, let's do our inside sentiment. We'll put that in there. And let's stamp the shell. Alrighty, last thing I want to do for the outside is put some bling on. Let's do 1, 2, 3 yellow heart. 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 little bling. And there's the confetti. Then we'll go 1, 2, 3 up that way. Pretty little bling there. All right, I think we're done. Oh my gosh, I forgot. I was going to do stickles in the stamens of these hibiscus flowers. I'm going to use Sunburst and just go in. And this isn't a super strong yellow, so it's not going to change them to yellow, but I think it'll be a nice little accent. Well, friends, here's my finished card project for this week's Out of the Vaults. The stamps I used were the Luau background and the Mythical Mermaid stamp set from Simon Hurley from 2022. I colored her lips in using an alcohol marker because that was really tiny and there was no way I was trying to get up in there with a brush. So I heat embossed the background using white Ranger embossing powder, the super fine detail powder, and then did some simple watercolor. We stamped and cut out the mermaid, did some simple watercolor, put her in a frame with a little bling. Let's catch up. Call me on my shell phone. And then I took a piece of the leftover from cutting the panel out for the front and I put it inside because you know, no naked insides. I hope you like this card. I hope it inspires you to get out some older stuff. Remember, have a lovely day, be excellent to each other, and go make something. Bye-bye.